So the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, Jim Chalmers, is on a tour at the moment selling last week's budget. He's ruled out handouts or one-off cash payments to provide respite to families buckling under the weight of the cost of living pressures. The government says any such policy would only see inflation rise further, and the Reserve Bank has already adjusted its peak inflation figures following yesterday's 25 basis point increase to the official cash rate. It is a warning more inflation could see the nation face a severe recession. That's what the RBA is saying now. And it's a bleak outlook for household budgets, particularly because we're entering a notoriously expensive summer festive period. Well, joining me live is Canstar's Editor-At-Large Effie Zahos. Effie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Kenny.
Here. So they're now saying that inflation, despite all the rate rises that we've seen, is going to be even higher towards the end of this year.
They have reforecasted that to 8%. Now, the interesting thing at the moment is that, yes, we have had 7 rate hikes and we're yet to see any pullback. A couple of factors here. There is a lag effect. I mean, CBA was probably one of the first to come out and just say about 3-month period of a lag effect. So at the time when the rates go up, households take a while to adjust to that and for it to hit their bottom line. And remember also a period where there is a substantial amount of savings and mortgage holders, those that are on fix, are yet to really roll off on their rates. So there's a couple of reasons why there is a lag effect. There's also the problem here that when you're looking at rate hikes, when you're having a tightening of monetary policy to pull back in demand, how much of this inflationary pressure is demand driven and how much of it is supply driven? So there is an argument here is how effective are these rate rises really?
Exactly, because if you break down the actual inflation figures, where is most of the inflation coming from? And it's in the food sector, it's in energy. And so, you know, people aren't going out and buying 7 TVs. It's these core spending areas. And what do you want people to do? Not eat and not have hot showers and charge their phones and things like that. The Reserve Bank has one lever that they can pull, and they have to be seen to be doing something to hoard off inflation. But these are difficult issues because if you look at the food prices, well, that's due to floods and supply chain issues and transport and high energy costs. And then you've got the war in Ukraine producing pressures on energy. That's nothing that we can do.
You raise a good point. It is one part of many levers. So, yeah, you're right. When you look at the last inflationary numbers, the 3 areas that were biggest concern, you said food. Well, that's floods. We can't do anything about that. Putting up interest rates really is not going to reduce the price of my veggies. Then you've got housing. That was a combination of both overseas factors, supply chain issues, the labour market, but also rent played in a factor in that increasing the inflationary figure up for that. So it's a combination of both housing. And then communications was one. The price of iPhones went up. Again, that's an overseas factor, but also plants, prices for plants went up. So it's not an easy thing to address. And this is why, and yesterday on your program, I also mentioned that the RBA could increase by 0.5. They didn't for this very factor that they're still testing the waters in the sense they need to go out with a softer approach just to see what impact this is going to have. Because you're right, a lot of these rate hikes won't hit the fundamental problem. But it's a combination of monetary policy and, as we just heard now, Jim Chalmers, that budget not adding to the inflationary pressure. And also, I hate to say this, the weather as well. These are all going to impact whether we do see a drop. The interesting point is when you look at what forecasters are saying, so again, economists with CBA are saying that the cash rate will peak at 3.1. Very different to what's happening in the US, over that 4% mark, and we'll know further.
Yeah, but I don't think the RBA even knows where the cash rate is going. Because if you're saying, like, they're trying to get inflation down, but it's these core areas where people can't really restrict their spending on. And so what does the RBA do? Do they just keep lifting rates to the point where unemployment starts to rise? Well, and then industry starts shutting down, which leads to more unemployment. But these outside factors, I mean, are playing a massive role. And so this is, there's now talk of recession, and not just here but overseas?
Well, global recession, yes. We had the International Monetary Fund come out and basically pinpoint some economies that will quite possibly go into recession. That will have a run-off effect on us, of course. But I guess also what I imagine the RBA is hoping for is there is a lot of savings, and then it could actually contribute more to the inflationary pressure. The numbers we're seeing mostly are supply chain. You're right, the big areas, food, we can't do much about energy. We can't do much about there. So no matter how many rate hikes you have, you're probably not going to hit that. They're hoping those issues will subside, and which is why there are some forecasters saying that rates will actually go down next year. So it's trying to push through this period, not actually add to what is already high inflationary pressure. If there was no monetary pull, can you imagine what spending will be like? We still haven't cut down spending completely. You still see the numbers, and you look at entertainment, you look at food, you look at restaurants. It's hard to actually get into a restaurant on a weekend in some places. So there are clearly people that have this money and that are still contributing to spending.
What impact is this going to have on Christmas? Because particularly retailers, they are looking for a buoyant Christmas period after COVID. And so, you know, you say there's a lag effect.
Yep.
Do we know how this is going to play out?
It is, and this is the thing. Let's not just remember, when you increase interest rates, it affects housing, it affects investments as well, it affects the costs of money, and it affects businesses. So it does have a big drag effect on that too. What I'm seeing as far as consumer data goes is that a heavy reliance on buy now, pay later. You can bet your bottom dollar that we are going to be inundated with ways to get through Christmas by putting it in instalments. And unfortunately, you know, people still are going to spend. Christmas is Christmas, and we're going to have this silly season. May not be as big as what retailers would want, but my biggest concern is that we're going to navigate around this issue and unfortunately put more on credit to get through.
Effie Zahos, thanks so much for your insights. Really appreciate you coming in. Thank you.